This episode of the All Automotive Podcast is brought to you by our friends at GeForce Automotive. GeForce Automotive is a certified service center through Auto Value. Want to make an appointment? Go to their website at www.geforceautomotive.net. Click on the banner that says Make an Appointment and make your appointment today. And now, the next episode of the All Automotive Podcast. All right, welcome back to another episode of All Automotive. I'm your host, Matt Clausen. It's summertime. It's summertime in Michigan, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about some of the things we can do to increase our fuel mileage. I know we're going to be heading out on the roads, go camping, tow our trailers, visit family out of state, go to the national parks. I do have a friend of mine who is going to take the route. There's a certain route that you can take to go through some of the nice, awesome national parks that are in the Utah area. And if I can be quite honest with you, Bryce Canyon is somewhere that if you're taking a trip out west, and, I live in the Midwest, and that's a lot of things that we do is we take trips out west or out of state and go to places that we don't see around here or don't have around here. And one of those is, the Grand Canyon, the Bryce Canyon, White Sands, New Mexico. There's all kinds of places out there out west that are really cool. So if you're taking a trip there, this episode, this is what I'm talking about. We're taking these trips and gas prices are just going crazy. And it doesn't look like there's any relief in sight as far as that goes. So if you're planning a trip in the next couple of months, you might want to take into account that the cost of the fuel and maybe budget for that. Take a little bit extra, put a little extra aside, make sure that you've got the extra to spend on that fuel. So some of the things I wanted to talk about today, and it's getting ready for this trip. You got this trip coming up, and let's say it's in July or August, and you want to make sure that everything is cool. From a shop owner standpoint, it's something that we always tell customers, hey, get this thing checked out before you go, and so that you have an idea of things that may come up, if they would come up, or if you're good to go on this trip. So, plan ahead. We've been very busy since the pandemic started, so most shops that I know and the friends that I have that own shops are, we've all been very busy. It's anywhere from a week to 2 weeks to almost 3 weeks at some cases, depending on the repair facility. I know the dealerships have been running right around the same times, same booking times. So if you got something coming up in July, you better hurry up and get your vehicle checked out and get it in there and get us to take a look at it before there's no appointments, and then it becomes an urgent situation before you go, or we don't skip out on doing it and we have an issue on the road. So one of the things I like to tell people all the time is right before you go is get the oil changed. We do a courtesy vehicle inspection on every oil change so that we can be completely transparent with you on what things and what images and what things are coming up, or what issues you may have and what issues you may not have. So get the oil changed if it's a gasoline engine, diesel engine, get the oil changed. We check all the fluids. We look at the tires. We set the tire pressure, and we'll get to that. That's another fuel saving tip that I'm going to get to on down the road here in this episode. So, we check the fluids, check the tires, we check the condition, make sure nothing's hanging down. We don't, you want to make sure that you've got a good vehicle, a safe vehicle for your family when you're driving on the road. So again, I touched on the tires. The tires, if they're low, you ever try to ride your bicycle with flat tires? Okay. So you know what I'm talking about. It's harder for your vehicle to roll down the road if the tires are flat or low pressure, obviously. So we want to make sure that we open that driver's door up. There's a sticker on there, which is the loading information sticker, and it's almost always in that driver's door area. That's where we look. That's the majority of the time. That's where it's at. It tells you what that vehicle manufacturer recommends for the tire pressure. So if you look in that little sticker, it'll tell you front and rear. Sometimes they're different. Take a look at that. Make sure you get the right pressure in your tires. So what you want to do is make sure that you've got let's say it's 35 pounds of pressure. So that's the cold pressure. That's when the vehicle hasn't driven anywhere and we're fresh off the overnight sit. When the tires are cold, that's the tire pressure that they are. If you've driven it and you're checking it, like you've got to go down the road because you don't have the ability to check it at your house. Okay, so you got to go down to the road to the gas station to check this out, or you got to stop by us. So we know that the tire pressure will increase about 3 pounds roughly once they're warm, and it depends on the temperature outside as well. So if it's really warm outside, then you could potentially have higher pressure in your tires. So what you want to look at is if it says 35, your tire pressure may be up to around 38 psi. So you want to just make sure that the tire pressures are in a range where, number one, your tire pressure monitor light isn't on, because it'll come on if there's too much air in your tires as well. I don't know if a lot of people know that or not, but it will come on if they have too much air in them, so it sees that as well. And also there's a maximum pressure on every tire, and that gets confusing too, so let's go over that as well. So I know people look on the tire, they'll look on the tire and say, oh, it says 44 pounds. Yeah, that's maximum pressure that tire manufacturer recommends for that particular tire. So that's the most that you want to put in it. It would probably ride really rough if you did do that, but your vehicle manufacturer knows what the best mileage your vehicle can get based on the pressure that they recommend on your sticker in your door. So 35 pounds is kind of most of the time that's commonplace. If you've got a sport utility and a truck, it may be different. So if you've got a 3/4 ton truck or a 1 ton truck, you've got 50 pounds in the front, you get 80 pounds in the rear tires because you're towing stuff and you're using it to tow going down the road. So those of you people that are using your truck, and let's say you're using a 1/2 ton truck to tow your travel trailer, that's a 30-foot travel trailer or a smaller travel trailer, just make sure that you look in your owner's manual to see what the recommended tire pressure is if you're towing. So most of the time you want to increase the pressure in the rear tires, not to exceed what's on the outside of the tire. So if you're 35 pounds normally when you're driving around unloaded, and you're going to load up and go, let's say I live in Michigan, we go up to the Upper Peninsula and we drag our campers, or we tow our campers up there, right? So what I do is I take that 35 pounds and I say, okay, the tires are going to get extra hot because I've got a load on them. The tires, and it's summertime, the road is hot. So I want to make sure that we're right around 38 to maybe 40 pounds of pressure in the rear tires. And it's something that you want to check out too, is if you're going down the road and it does feel, I can feel the difference. I don't, as a technician for a long time, I can tell the difference in the tire pressures. And that's one of the things that we check. So that's one of the things that gets checked when you get your oil change done, or at any place you go. Any of the quick lube places that you go. I managed a quick lube place back in the day, and that was one of the first things that we did was check your tire pressure and set the tire pressure. And we were also, I also trained those guys to know that, the vehicle's hot, it requires more air pressure. So, or it'll show more air pressure. It's not going to require more air pressure. It's just that the tires get hot and then the air expands. So you get more pressure in your tire as the tire gets hot. So keep that in mind if you're towing your truck and camper. So again, this can save you over the long run 3%, according to a couple of Google search internet sites that I looked at. One of them said 2 to 3%. So, and the other one said 3%. So, hey, it's worth it. When it's My truck requires premium fuel, and it was $5.99 in my area, so it's crazy. But you want to the things that we're trying to do to save fuel now is different than just trying to find it around town for the least expensive amount. So doing these little things can help as well. So some of my other summer trips, and that really should do it for tires. I don't think there's anything else that we need to talk about as far as tires. Obviously, make sure the tread depth is there. You know, if it's going to rain, you want to have the ability to not slip and slide and have the tread depth more than 430 seconds. If you don't know what that is, if it just take a penny out of your pocket or find a penny, and you know the distance between the top of Abe Lincoln's head and the edge of the coin is 230 seconds. So if you stick that penny in your tread in the middle of the tire, you can see. If you can see his head, you need tires. If you can't see his head or the top of his head between the bottom of the tread depth and the level part of the end of the tread, you know, then you're going to need tires. So that's something you want to think about getting replaced before you go on the road. And that's something that we check too. So don't feel bad. If it's something that you feel like you want to do, by all means, go ahead and do it. There's tread depth gauges out there that you can get that are really cool. You just stick them down in there. They're even on your keychain. Goodyear makes one. We have that tool available to us. All my technicians have them in their pockets or on their toolbox or wherever. So we're checking them all the time just to make sure that your tires are good enough to go on the road, because you certainly don't want to blow out when you go down the road. And I don't know if any of you have been on the side of the road trying to change a tire, but I had that unfortunate circumstance a couple years ago when I ran over a bolt. And you wouldn't think a bolt would go through your tire, but it does. And the bolt, I saw it in there and was like, okay, I'm going to roll the dice and try and get to my shop. And, we're going down the highway, and what do you know? It flies out of there. And immediately the tire light comes on and the tire pressure went to absolutely zero. And for good enough circumstances, it was a situation where it was the right rear tire. So we're off on the median, off on the shoulder of the road. And, we're digging out the jack that we don't know where it's at. And we're blocking the wheels to make sure it's in park. And, it was a rear wheel. So when you're lifting the rear wheel up, the vehicle can roll. So you want to make sure that you, number one, block the wheels, and then, check and make sure your jack is in there, the thing to jack up your vehicle if it's something that you feel comfortable doing. Otherwise, we all have road service, and I have no problem calling them and getting them to help out, because the guys in the tow trucks that show up, they've got the right tools, they've got sockets, they've got cordless impact wrenches. They can get the stuff loose without even having to, and they may even have like a floor jack or whatever. But those guys have done it so much, they know where your stuff is. They can get it out. By all means, don't feel like you need to be Superman and do it yourself on the side of the road at all. I say that all the time. It's like, I don't think I would have any problem calling road service to have them, change the tire on my vehicle if that was the situation, or if I didn't feel like I could do it. But again, it's something that you don't want to be on the side of the road, especially, and this was, it's just Interstate 94, I-94, and I like to, my nickname for I-94 is I-94 Speedway, and the speed limit's 70, but I get passed all the time, and I don't drive slow. So, and it's, those big semis coming by, and you're off on the side of the road, and the whole vehicle moves when they go by, the whoosh of the air. And it just makes me really nervous, because you hear about these people all the time that, that have unfortunate circumstances changing their tire on the side of the road. So certainly don't be afraid to call roadside assistance. And if it's a rural road and there's not a lot of traffic, then I wouldn't hesitate to get out and change a tire. That wouldn't, or put the spare tire on. And as far as you truck owners, this is the other thing that we want to check before we go on our summer trip is checking all the tires, make sure that the spare tire is full of air and that you can get said spare tire down. Sometimes those hoists don't work very well, or the tires stick to the frame up in there. They've been up there for so long, and my truck's a 2015, and this was a couple years ago. I mean, it came right down, which I was thankful of, but there were some years there, and if your truck isn't got some age to it, you might want to crawl under there and make sure that all that stuff works before you go. And I would say, especially if you're taking more of a, if you're going past 2-hour trip, then that's worth the thing to crawl under there and see if that thing comes down. Because make sure that your tire iron is there, and what I mean by that's the thing that takes the lug nuts off and so forth. So make sure your jack handles are all there, your jack is there, and then in the Chevys they give you the wheel chocks. So we chalk the front wheels, so that's not funny when the car falls off the jack. So again, that's as far as tires. I think that's pretty good. I think I've covered everything I could think of with tires. I don't know if there's anything else that I need to go over, but yeah, just make sure we're checking that stuff before we go. Number 3, hey, it's summertime. Does your air conditioner work? Is that going to be an okay thing if the air conditioner isn't working and the whole family's got to ride down the road and with either the windows down or 90-degree heat and 90% humidity? It gets a little crazy. So make sure that your air conditioner works, and that's one thing that you can, when you call and make your appointment for your oil change, if it's not performing like you should or you want us to check it, that's something that we certainly can do. I've seen those people go out and get those cans and try to do it themselves, but let me just tell you this. The air conditioning machine or the air conditioning system on your vehicle is set up very similar to how your refrigerator is set up in your house, so that your refrigerator can run for 30 years or whatever without having to be recharged. If your system is low and it needs to be recharged, it's leaking somewhere. And I know that I tell people this all the time, and they think it's a maintenance thing. They think that, oh yeah, after a couple of years, you got to recharge them. No, not after a couple of years, you don't need to recharge them. The problem with the vehicle air conditioning systems is it's unlike your refrigerator. Your vehicle drives down the road. Your vehicle has the ability to pick up debris from the road, which can hit the condenser and cause a leak. Your vehicle has the ability to get very hot under the hood and create high pressure situations, which could potentially shut the AC system down. So there's things that we want to look at if your air conditioning is not working. And I would caution you as far as getting these cans from wherever you want to get them from, the grocery store or one of the big box stores. I could start naming big grocery stores that carry them. My problem with those is they put stuff in there to seal these leaks, and it's kind of like Fix-A-Flat, if I could say that. That's kind of a rough idea of what this stuff is. So it's supposed to seek out the leak and fill the gap, but your air conditioning system also has components on it that can get clogged with this stuff and not allow your system to work either, which could cost you extra money. And this is, I'm being totally transparent. This is nothing that, anybody in the automotive industry would tell you. If you go down to your local garage and ask them the same question, I'm pretty sure that the look on their face when they say, well, I bought one of those cans and put it in there, and just like, oh, okay. Because, I'll use a specific instance. We did have a customer at the shop. He's like, yeah, I couldn't get it to work. I'm going to have you guys take a look at it. And after digging a couple of questions, I got out of the guy that, oh, yeah, I did put one of those cans in it, but that didn't fix it. So it must be leaking somewhere. Okay. So we pull the vehicle in the shop, we check it out, and we hook it up to our air conditioning machine. And the high side pressure is just really high, and it shuts itself off. So first of all, our air conditioning machine has a refrigerant identifier on it, so it identifies that he put the right stuff in it, because you can do that. You put the wrong stuff in there. Or somebody can put something else in there that will work, but it's not the right stuff, and it will damage our machine. So we have a refrigerant identifier, and it tells us it's the right stuff. Okay, so we evacuate that system out. So he had almost twice the amount of air conditioning refrigerant in his vehicle. So that's one of the problems that we see is unfortunately, and I get it, you're do it yourself, or you want to try and save some money. I don't know that air conditioning is a really good part of your vehicle to try and save money on, unless you know what you're doing. Unless you're a technician, or unless you work in the heating and air conditioning system, and you know how air conditioning systems work, then okay, I get it that you tried to do it yourself. But again, your vehicle drives down the road. It has the ability to create leaks. There are several different fittings and lines that have seals, unlike your refrigerator would. So and getting back to this guy that had too much refrigerant in and why it didn't work, is think about the tire on your vehicle, or the tire on your bicycle. Let's just use your bicycle tire. You put twice the amount of air in your bicycle tire, what's going to happen? Most likely it's going to blow the tube and not take all that air. And that's kind of what was happening with this. However, the vehicle systems have protection devices so that once the pressure goes to a certain range, it shuts itself down. Just like it would if it was low on refrigerant. It doesn't start up if it's low. So again, I would caution you on some of those cans that you get even if you get them from the parts store and they tell you that they're the greatest thing and this will work, and if it's low, it's leaking somewhere, and it's just a matter of how to find it and where to get it. And what we do is, so if the system is low, we'll recharge it with the proper refrigerant, and then we will add refrigerant dye. And what I mean by this dye is it's a fluorescent dye that we use a black light with and some yellow glasses, and it fluoresces really yellow where that system is leaking from. But there are a couple of things on the system which we can't see. The number one thing that we can't see physically look at is your evaporator core. We can see the drain on your evaporator, the drain that lets the condensation out, the thing that's why your vehicle drips water, is because when it's really humid out and that evaporator's evaporating and doing its job, it's like you set a glass of ice cold water out on the deck to your wife or significant other, and it starts to sweat down the side. That's what happens. So that condensation's got to get out of there. Well, that condensation will wash past that dye, and then we can see that. We can't physically see your evaporator core until we take the dash out and take the heater assembly out and get that evaporator core out of there. So number one, if the system's low, it's leaking somewhere, you probably should have it professionally taken care of before you go. If it's an issue where it's blowing cold, but hey, Matt, it only comes out on the defrost, or it's only blowing on the floor, it won't change modes. Okay, that's a different problem. We can look at that too. That's not an issue. That your air conditioning is working great. You don't have to put the refrigerant in it. Okay. And yeah, you might be able to get away with that. You might be able to take and go get one of those cans and stumble your way through it and get that injected into the system, and then it's working good, and that's great. But how long is it going to last? It's just like pumping up a tire that's got a leak. It's how long is it going to last? It's going to leak out somewhere, or wherever it's leaking, it's going to leak out. So it's a good idea if you have an issue with your air conditioning system, and it's not performing, it's not getting cold, it's not turning on, that kind of thing, have it professionally taken care of. I mean, have it professionally inspected and looked at. It's going to save you money in the long run, because you're going to go buy that can that's 50 to 60 bucks, and that's a lot of times not going to save you any money. You're going to spend that. It's going to leak out, and then you're going to have to come in and have us inspect it and check it. So you're pretty much almost to how much it costs to have us take a look at it without any refrigerant. Now, the refrigerant cost has gone up in the last couple of years, only because the new refrigerant, the R1234YF, is out now. And if you have a 2018 vehicle and beyond, that is the refrigerant that's in your vehicle. But since 1995, we've had refrigerant R134A in our vehicles. So hence why we got a refrigerant identifier on our machines. However, the fittings are different, so you're not going to get that confused. And obviously, when they went from R12 back in the 70s and 80s to this R134A, they made distinct changes on how those fittings, how our air conditioning machines connect to your vehicle, is basically what that is. So you're not in really danger, and I don't think there's a store or anything. Maybe the parts store would sell you, an auto parts store would sell you 1234YF or the R1234YF refrigerant. However, you're not going to like how much it is, because that stuff's very expensive. So if you do have a 2018 and beyond, you got the 1234YF, and then prior to that, you should have R134A. So again, you're going to spend $50 to $75 on one of these cans. You're going to put it in. If it's low, it's leaking. How long is it going to last? It may last you the rest of the season. Great. Cool. But the other problem with that is it's deteriorating to the ozone layer. So anytime the refrigerant leaks out of your vehicle, you're doing other damage that you can't see. So one of the things that we do, if your system's leaking and you don't want it fixed, it's empty. We recover all the refrigerant. If we've put it into, we don't charge your vehicle up and let you go on about your way. So that's one of the things that, unfortunately, if it's leaking and you don't want it fixed, we're not going to charge it, and we'll see how long it takes for it to leak out. Because I've seen them a small enough leak to where it's not going to leak out for the rest of the year, but it's leaking. It's going to work. But as you go along, it's just going to get lower and lower and lower and not work as well as it should. And then eventually stop. And then, we've seen them to where, yeah, go ahead, charge it up. I don't care, whatever. We'll charge it up, and it lasts. It's leaking out so bad we can't. So it's one of those things where it's more in your best interest just to get it fixed if you can. That way it's working for your family and everybody's cozy and cool and not sweating your butt off when you're driving down the road going to Bryce Canyon out west. So, yeah, make sure your AC works. So, okay, here's some other safety items. And I think I went over a little bit of this stuff is make sure your jack and your spare are in good working order. And then if you do have to stop on the road, I don't know, some people are, you can go to the store and buy those triangles, and you can buy a flare if you want. If your vehicle's stopped and it's another issue, it's not a flat tire and it's died and it won't start back up. If you're on an interstate, it can be nerve-wracking. There's something you might want to do is just go get a flare kit, be prepared for stuff like that, and be prepared. Obviously, most of us all have a cell phone and we can quickly call somebody, but when you're out in the middle of nowhere and you don't have great service for your cell phone, and hey, just make sure you're prepared for your trip. So some of the other things that we want to do if we're checking and trying to save money at the pump is there's some apps out there that you can get that you can put on your phone that tells you where the cheapest price is in town. Save you 5-10 cents sometimes. hey, that adds up. So that what we're trying to do now is try to save money at the pump in different ways. So I know we're a member of Sam's Club, and they're typically 20, 30 cents lower than everywhere else in town if you can get in there. And, you might have to sit there and wait for a little bit. And I've seen them sell out. And some of the big warehouse stores, and I'll say that Costco, Sam's Club, Walmart Plus, get a membership. It's going to save you, because if you can save 30 cents a gallon or 20 cents a gallon, hey man, do it, because we don't know how long it's going to take for the gas prices to come down. I mean, eventually they're going to come down some, but I really think that we're going to be stuck in this $3 to $5 range for the next year or so, just depending on how our government decides to help us or not help us, or help the situation as far as, doing things to increase the supply, because the demand is still there, and which is still driving the price. So if you took economics class in high school, supply is not meeting demand, so the price goes up, so that we stop buying it, which it's harder to do that when you need it every day, even every week. So other things you can do is, go slower, drive the speed limit, let off the gas before, let your vehicle coast. My dad was famous for this. My dad had a 1979 Chevette, and I used to go to the airport with him, and we'd go fly his airplane. So he would kick it out of gear, and we'd coast down the hills before we come to a stop. It's like a quarter of a mile up there is the stop sign, but it's all downhill. So he'd kick it out of gear and let it idle. And I know if he was still alive today, this would be something that he would love, and he'd have one of these cars that starts and stops. And I know my wife's Traverse, the 2018, or I'm sorry, hers is it's a 2021. I don't know. It's one of those. Anyway, it's got start stop. So it's weird to me, because you come up and it dies. I was like, did this car just die? First time I drove it like that, I was like, did this car just die? Oh no, it does that. It shuts off. So my dad would have one of those, because he would do that. Right at the middle of the intersection, he'd shut the car off, start it back up, put it in gear, go. It's designed way differently today, but he'd shut the key off, have it neutral, put on a clutch, start back up, take off. So leave your vehicle's fuel saving things in place. I know with the Ford, you can push a button and that's off the entire time that you drive it. But you get in it again, it's on again. So if you have the ability to override your start stop, just, you know what, it saves. People don't think it saves. It does. So that's one of the things you can do too. Map out your route. Get a little dig into your route to work. Maybe there's a better way to go. You sit in a traffic light a lot. There's a different route that if you come to this traffic light, you can turn right and keep going and not sit there and waste fuel. Your vehicle doesn't have start stop. So you can also get these apps. I heard an ad for an app the other day that it gives you rewards based on your fuel purchases. So it gives you rewards at other places. It's kind of like your credit card rewards. Wherever you buy fuel, they're giving you money back to spend at, let's say, Target or where, I don't know. I'm not really sure. I guess I should have looked that up. But there are apps out there that will give you money back based on the money you spend at the pump. Pretty cool, huh? So, yeah, become a master of your fuel efficiency. Avoid your hard, heavy accelerations. Give it time to get up to speed. I don't know if any of you, I have an instant economy graph on my Silverado, and most GM cars have it. If you flick through the driver information center, you can see that it gives you a graph and it tells you what your average is. So over the course of the last couple of weeks, I've been kind of backing off and doing some things. And, my vehicle, my Silverado's got a 6.2 V8, and it uses a lot of gas. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. And I've been known to take off fast, drive fast, do it's one of those things that I don't know that I could try and do differently if I had the opportunity. It's tough for me to change your driving habits after all these years. However, over the last couple of weeks, I have taken my time. I have let off the gas. I have watched that because my vehicle has what's called displacement on demand also. So when you're cruising down the road, it'll actually turn off 4 cylinders. A lot of the groups and stuff that I'm in, they call it DOD and that's what it is, displacement on demand. It's a short term for that. Or active fuel management. So it'll turn off 4 of the cylinders. So I let off the gas to get that to engage itself and try and go a shorter, different way home. I've been going a 2-lane road and not going on the highway. And, my average economy for the 50 miles, my 50-mile average, so I can do that on my truck. I can go 25, 50, or 400. So my 50-mile average went from 15.5 to 20.6. That's not bad. And I'm actually impressed with myself because I've actually been taking a different route home. Number one, because they're working on I-94 Speedway, and I don't want to get stuck in a traffic jam or get into an accident because people aren't paying attention and don't see that the traffic's stopping and, they run into the back of you or whatever happens. And there's been some accidents on there lately, and so I've been taking a different route home. So there's a road that goes from Jackson to where I live, and, it's a 55-mile-an-hour road. So I've been going 55, 60, trying to keep it smooth. And it's kind of a hilly road, not too bad. But I'm really impressed. I went from 15.5 to 20.6. So there's ways to do it, people. It's you're not going to go in there and get a discount just because you're a nice guy. Most of these gas stations, I'm a rewards. Exxon's got rewards, Marathon's got rewards, BP's got rewards. If you're a Speedway's got rewards, they've all got rewards. So if you buy your fuel, let's say at Speedway, you get your Speedway rewards card. So you build up all those points. Guess what? I just got my Pop and my Slim Jim for free because I've been filling up with fuel. So that's some money savings. It's not directly to what you want to get, but look around. There's stuff out there that, there's always a way to save a little bit on your fuel. And immediately, if you're a points reward with Marathon, as soon as you put in your cents off card, it lowers the gas price. Boom. There you go. So summer driving tips. Hey, let's review. So summer driving tips. Let's review this stuff here. So let's get our oil changed. Take it in. Get the oil changed. Have them take a look at it. Make sure you're safe to go. Check those tires. Keep the tire pressure up there. I'm telling you, it's going to save you in the long run. And if it's losing air and your low tire light keeps coming on, bring it in. We can reseal the tire very easily, or find that nail and plug that hole or get that hole sealed up. Going on a long trip, you don't want to be sweating your butt off. You want to make sure your air conditioning's working, the blower fan's working, all that stuff. Check the trunk. Check your spare tire. Make sure your jack is there. I've had people buy cars, and they've had them for 2 or 3 years, and they're like, I got a flat, and there was no spare or something in there. And there are cars out there that don't have spare tires. They have an air pump to help you pump the tire up. It's not helping you. So if you know that ahead of time, then okay, then we can call AAA or call roadside service. And if you're a customer of ours, and you can ask a lot of places, a lot of service garages nowadays, as long as you're a customer, you've got roadside assistance. Ask them about it. You can ask us. We're a Confidence Plus nationwide warranty. You can get on that phone. They'll deliver you $5, $10 worth of gas. If you run out of gas, they'll help you get your tire changed so you can get back going. It's no problem. And if it's something mechanical, they'll tow you to the closest shop that deals with that particular warranty. It's worth it. Just ask us, and we can give that to you, give that information to you, so you have it in the car. So make sure the safety items are there. If you want flares, if you want triangles and so forth, get that stuff in there. And the fuel savings, go look for those apps. Check that stuff out. Become a member of Sam's Club if you're not already. You get less expensive gas. It's not very hard to do. Well, that's going to do it for another episode of All Automotive. I'm your host, Matt Clausen. Hey, thanks for listening, and keep the greasy side down.